You are listening to Two Aliens and 11 Roswell Books podcast by Christy and Jess, hosted on Spreaker.com, an original Roswell podcast about the relevance and importance of the companion book series to the TV show Roswell. Hello everyone, and welcome to our second episode of our podcast, Two Aliens and 11 Roswell Books. I'm your host, Christy, with my co-host, Jess.
Hi, guys. Glad you're here.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about the differences between the Roswell High book series versus the 11 Roswell tie-in or companion series books.
And there are a lot.
And why the two series do not go together. We're going to get into the order of how they should be read and why the two series don't go together. And we're going to talk more about why people don't know about the books, they weren't highly publicized, why these books matter so much, and we're going to get a little into depth about the top 10 main differences between both book series, but mainly in this episode it's going to be Jess's knowledge of the book series.
I'm super excited because there's a lot to talk about here.
If you want to read the books for yourselves and not listen to this podcast episode, we totally understand, because we are going to be delving into some serious detail about the Roswell High books and the companion TV series books. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then don't listen. We won't be offended, but we do really encourage you to get the books for yourself, read them. You can either listen to them on the Roswell Book Party YouTube channel, or you can buy them physically, the physical copy off of Amazon, eBay, Macari app, Biblio, thriftbooks.com, and we also have 9 out of the 11 books on PDF that we mentioned. You can just contact us on social media or contact me, Christy, at roswellvirtualparty@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to email you the Google Drive link where you can download all the PDFs and read them. And then you can come back and listen to our podcast episodes if you don't want to be spoiled. But if you're a person who would rather just have the cliff notes on the Roswell High book series and the companion book series, then you can listen to our podcast and be spoiled if you want. So it's your choice. But just wanted to get that out of there before you listened any further. The main differences between the Roswell High series and the 11 Roswell tie-in series books. These two series do not actually go together. Jess, can you explain why these two series should be read separately and why they do not go together?
Well, Christy, these books are two completely different stories. If you read 1 through 10 and then jump into the companion books, you're going to be lost, because our characters don't look the same, the situations aren't the same, nothing's the same. So a lot of people say to me, oh, well, are you going to start at the beginning? How do I read them? Do you start with book number 1? No, you don't. If you're going to read the companion book series, you start with the companion book series. That's number 1. And I have a handy-dandy list for that if anybody wants it, of how you do that, how you read them in order.
This is something I've heard from a lot of fans. They think the Roswell High series is what we saw on television, and the only thing I know personally is that the first book is similar to the pilot, but then everything else in the Roswell High series is not like it was on the television show.
That's right. I actually just jumped into Roswell High myself the last 2 weeks. I've been doing nothing but reading that in my free time. And the reason I waited so long is because the story is so different. And as you all know, I'm in love with the original show, with the OG series, and I'm in love with those characters, and I just was afraid to dive into this. But it had me questioning, like, what is so different? Maybe it's not as different as I think. Maybe I need to look for myself. So when you first start reading, you're immediately, like in the pilot episode, you're at the crash down. Liz gets shot. he puts ketchup on her, he runs out, and you're like, oh, you know what's going on. You can visualize it. But after that, literally right after that, it completely changes. We've got aliens we've never seen before, characters we've never known, bad guys that are different. This story takes place in just 1 year. So all 10 books happen in less than a year. We got 3 years in our story.
Crashdown.com has a great section on the books. If you go to crashdown.com and you just click on books, you'll see a bunch of sections for the Roswell High books. You can learn more about how they started.
The original covers are very rare, too. Just so you know, there's only 6 original covers. So 1 through 6 has originals without our cast on it. After that, they didn't even bother to bring out any original covers. Then it was just our cast. So if you find any of the originals, hang on to them because they're worth about $50 right now on eBay, but they're worth some money because they are very rare.
And then we know with the companion series books, they are also very rare because they stopped being printed shortly after the TV series ended, especially the last book, Turnabout, which goes for upwards of $300+ on eBay or Amazon. And based on the TV show, these novels were released during the series' original run, with 8 books that were released after the series ended. So the first 3 books were released during the TV series, and then the last 8 were released after the series ended. One of the authors from Roswell High, Laura J. Burns, penned the 7th book of the companion book series, which is Quarantine. And we all know, well, we will hear more about how much Jess does not like Quarantine in a future episode.
Yeah, we will. But when it comes to the companion books, they start in season 2. That's very important to remember. So the best way to enjoy Roswell is the first thing you do is you watch all of season 1, the whole season 1, okay? And then you watch season 2, and you stop on on episode 15. And this is because Alex is still alive in episode 15. And that's important because Alex is still alive in the next following books. So after you get to episode 15, then you read Loose Ends, Little Green Men, and No Good Deeds. And then you continue and watch the rest of season 2. Then, after season 2 is done, you're going to read Shades, Skeletons in the Closet, and Dreamwalk. Then, after Dreamwalk, you'll watch season 3, and you'll stop after the first episode. So after episode 1, you stop, and then you read Quarantine, if you want to. I'll explain more about that later. And then, after Quarantine, you watch to Graduation. And then after Graduation is over, you'll read New Beginnings, Nightscapes, Pursuit, and Turnabout. And then you're done. I call them like my mini episodes. Like these are like extra episodes we didn't get in the show in reading form, basically. So this way you have a better view of the whole story and the whole Roswell world.
And for anyone who wants a visual representation of the guide that Jess just explained, just contact us on social media. You can email me at roswellvirtualparty@gmail.com and we can get you that guide so you can see it if you're a visual learner.
Shout out to our friend Becky, who reached out to the authors for us in email form. And we know that a lot of the authors are kind of frustrated with how these books came out too, because they weren't pushed. Like nobody knows about them, and they were like, why aren't there's no publicity, nobody knows. So, it's frustrating to everybody around because here's these awesome books, nobody knows about them, and now we can't find them. And we also don't know what the mystery is about Turnabout. Like there was a bunch of copies destroyed, so the rumor says, and we don't know why. Nobody knows why. So it's a big mystery.
Becky emailed Michael Martin and Andy Mangels, who wrote the last book, Turnabout, and she asked them about the books. And she said if there was any way that we could advocate Simon and Schuster, who were the publishing company for the books, to release the books in e-format because they're now out of print and they're very expensive online to buy. And this is a little bit of what Andy said. Thanks for the kind words about the books. I am frustrated by their lack of availability also in the insane way they were put out of print, which is why they are so expensive. To my knowledge, Simon & Schuster no longer has the rights to republish the novels in any format, so I believe that contacting anyone there is fruitless. And to insert here, I want to say I did try to contact Simon & Schuster myself through Instagram and email, and it was completely fruitless. They said they were going to help me and send me on to one of their customer service associates, and they never got back to me. And it really seems like they're just not interested in the Roswell books in any form or fashion. Andy goes on to say, all the editorial contacts I had there are no longer employed by SNS, so I wouldn't even know where to start. My assumption is that Fox or its subsidiaries owns the novel rights now. Years ago, I scanned the books, and when requested by fans who would pay the reasonable amount, I provided PDFs of the scans and asked if they would make a donation of their choosing to help pay for the scanning time that they could. To date, 0 people donated anything. I cannot sell the PDFs as that is legal. If you have any ideas, I am open to them.
Well, now we have the PDFs for ourselves, so we're just giving them out like candy.
Yes, we are. So we have now 9 out of the 11 books on PDF. Our friend Deb just did No Good Deed. She is on to, I believe it's A Little Green Men. She is currently typing.
Shout out to her for typing them by hand for us. So, I mean, thank you, Deb, because without you, our goal is to have every single one. So when people reach out to us and say, "Hey, do you have these books?" I don't let they're unavailable and we can't get other copies. Nobody wants to print them again. So the other option we have is this way. So I'm really, really excited and super proud that some of the Roswell fans got together and said, you know what, we're going to do this for everybody, which is why I give them to people. I don't want money for them. I don't want to, I think that they're very important and people need to read them. I'm humbled and I'm excited that she's doing this for us because it's going to further our mission.
Absolutely. We're so happy Deb is doing that. Becky also emailed Dean Smith, who wrote No Good Deed and Little Green Men, and explained, how the books are out of print, they're super expensive, and if there's anything that he could do about getting them released by ebook, to see if it was possible to get them released in ebook form. So he said, thanks for the kind words on my books. I sure enjoyed writing the novels, that's for ssure. I do not think Simon & Schuster have anything to do with the books anymore, I'm afraid. Once their license expired and the books went out of print, it would be up to whoever owns Roswell to license out the books again, and not sure that would be even possible, the legal stuff. And he said he'll make some inquiries to what happened to the Roswell license to see if he could find out, and so she hasn't really heard from him since, as far as I know.
I'm pretty sure that now that Fox is owned by Disney, that's another, it's just like trying to get a movie. It's like trying to compete with that mouse, like I would love to see a movie. We would love to get these books re-released, but unless Fox sees something dollar signs in their eyes, they're not going to touch it. And plus with the reboots, who knows? I mean, it's a lot of variables.
Yeah, there's a lot of legal complications when it comes to trying to get the books like reprinted or re-released, even if it's just in ebook format. There's just a lot of legal implications. Although I do believe that if they did ever re-release the books in a limited quantity for print, that it would be successful if they did it all in like a box set with like a Roswell poster for a certain amount of money, whether it was $100 or $200. I'm sure there's fans out there who'd be willing to pay that, because I know for myself, I've definitely paid over $200 for all my Roswell books. And I just found a deal on the Macari app, which is kind of like an eBay app where it's personal, like individual seller to individual buyer. You can sell different things on there, and somebody was selling the last 4 books for like $200, and then I got a discount.
Fun fact, they did actually come in a box set, but it was still Roswell High, and it was 1 through 5. So I did find that. Thanks to the Roswell Oracle, I found a picture of it too. I thought that'd be really cool to find something like that for my collection.
Yeah, I think that would be great if they did that for the Roswell Companion Book Series, since a lot of Roswell fans still don't know these books exist. We get it all the time. We hear about it all the time on social media about these fans who have no idea that these books exist, which is why it was so important for us to do this podcast and explain to you guys what the differences are between the Roswell High books and the Companion Book Series, and that, yes, indeed, the Companion Book Series does exist. It is hard to find because there's very limited quantities out there, and that's why it's so expensive on eBay, Amazon. Thriftbooks.com has the books. Biblio.com I found in there too, but they are fairly expensive. And sometimes you can find a deal like I did on Macari, or sometimes people sell them on Facebook, but it's kind of rare. So you really have to look. And I was lucky enough that I'm finally getting all of them in print, but I had to spend a few $100.
Yeah, and don't just look for one and instantly purchase it. I've seen turnabout for $1,000. I mean, there's some money-hungry people out there, but I've also heard stories of people being lucky enough to find them in Goodwill. So if you go to a thrift store, I always check the book section to see if they're there, because they have turned up there. But also, when I was buying these books, I compared prices. I went to eBay, and if it was cheaper on eBay, I went that way, or if it was cheaper on Amazon. But they do have them other places. You just got to look. You just got to search, use that Google. And also, I'm always posting. When I find a deal, or somebody else does, a lot of people reach out to me, and I'm always posting on my Instagram or my Facebook page, hey, here's a deal. If you don't have these books, this is a good price. So if you need help, feel free to contact me. I always love helping people find Roswell books, especially the expensive ones, because they mean so much to me. So if I can help you, give me a shout, and I will do what I can.
I am always looking for deals for the Roswell books too, and when I do find them, I post them in our Facebook group called Roswell Watch, Read, and Repeat. So if you are really into the books like us, feel free to request to join that group on Facebook, and just search for Roswell Watch, Read, and Repeat, and one of us, me or Jess, will admit you into the group. And then that way you'll see when we post some good deals like that, and we post other fun stuff too about the books. So unfortunately, the Companion Book Series are not really well known in the fandom. There was a little bit of news about them on fanforum.com back in the day for some fans who followed the news threads on that big message board site, and some fans there knew about the Companion Book Series. But unfortunately, for a vast majority, I believe, that I have personally seen on social media, a lot of the Roswell fans don't know that these Companion Book Series was out there, and we didn't know until last year, until we discovered it. Thank you to Leonard again. We plugged him in the first episode, but thank you, Leonard. So the books were not highly publicized. There was no commercials that I ever remember on television of them even mentioning them after an episode. Like, nothing that I saw. The only ads we saw for the books were in other book series, like a general ad, where they would mention Roswell, Buffy, Charmed, other series that they had companion book series.
I found a bunch of those in my Roswell High books, actually. And a lot of times, too, when I mention the books, people automatically think I'm talking about Roswell High. I'm not. Every time. I get that. Oh, well, are you going to start with book 1? No. I'm not talking about Roswell High. Completely different story. If you're talking about the TV show and you're talking about the books, they're the companion books. Because I'm telling you, they're different stories. They don't go together.
Jess, tell us why the books matter so much to you.
That's a good question. I needed an ending for one. I couldn't be left at all of our favorite characters in a van going to who knows where doing who knows what. I needed to know what was going to happen. It drove me crazy. So they matter to me because they give us that and they bring back every single character that we care about. So a lot of things that we don't understand in the series, especially like with the dupes, we get a lot more information about them because of the books. And without that, you're left hanging. Well, who are these other guys from New York and why are they so weird? Like, what's going on? And it's important to me because it makes me understand the whole story. And I'm one of those people that when I'm in love with something, I want to know it all. I want to know the details. I want to know why. And this is what's my way for me to not only get a good ending, but to get additional information about the characters in the story that I already love. That's why it's important to me.
In the books for me it's now that I know about the companion series books, it's so important for me to get more background information that I didn't know from watching the series. When you watch the series, some of the things were not properly executed on screen or explained. For example, the whole thing in season 2 with the jellyfish and the granolith and the blue stones, like all of that was very weird and confusing to me when I watched it on screen. But when you read the books, you learn more about that stuff, and it becomes a little bit more clear, and you just get a better understanding of why that was written and what that storyline was really supposed to be about. And then another example would be, I wasn't a big fan of Jesse coming on because it seemed so sudden that Isabel suddenly had this new guy in season 3, and I felt like, wait, like she just lost Alex. But in the books, we get a lot more explanation of how Jessie came into her life, how she fell in love with him, and how she's still grieving Alex. And I really actually enjoy that because I miss Alex so much, and I love Alex so much that it's great to see more of that in the books. And it's very spot on. For the majority of the companion book series, it's very spot on with what our characters act like on screen on the TV show Roswell.
Right. I agree with that. Well, I'm not going to spoil it yet because we haven't got to it, but there is a very important aspect of Alex that comes up later on in the last 4 books. And all I'm going to say is it had me in tears. It's it's very great, and we're going to talk about that when we get to Turnabout.
Let's talk about Roswell High and how vastly different it is from the companion book series and the TV show. I do remember that Max is blonde. Isabel is not a nice person. I know Kyle and Valenti were not nice people. Liz was supposed to be originally a Latina. So actually the Roswell High series has more in common with the reboot Roswell, New Mexico than it does our original show, Roswell. So we're going to get into the top 10 main differences by category and Jess is going to share her knowledge with you guys about what she knows. First up is characters / other aliens / bad guys. Jess, please explain these main differences to us.
So, character-wise, we already know that they look different. For example, Alex has red hair. He's redhead with freckles. We already know that Max is blonde with blue eyes. Isabel's blonde with blue eyes as well. What's different here, besides their look, is their attitudes. So let's start this way. So Max is he's still very shy. He's almost the same, but he has a lot more gumph in him. For example, like Kyle said something really snotty to Liz, and he punches him in the face. Our Max would have never done that. But Max is almost the same. And then we got Kyle. Kyle is not a nice person. He wants to date Liz. Liz doesn't want anything to do with him. Liz thinks he's a jerk. He's very sexist. He's very mean. He's not a football player either. Does not play football. Then we got his dad. We've got Valenti. Valenti is bad guy in this series. He is part of what is called Project Clean Slate. That is the equivalent of the special unit. And his job is to hunt down aliens in the community. And we don't exactly know why and what they're doing with them at first, but we do know that he suspects that Max and Isabel and Michael are aliens. He's been watching them. And then we got Michael. Michael has got jet black hair and he's very muscular and he's very kind and very soft spoken. He's not like the Michael we know. Him and Maria don't fight at all. He climbs in her bedroom at night just because he wants to cuddle with somebody. Can you just picture that? It's just weird. It took him 10 books to realize that he was in love with Maria too. Maria is a health nut. She has her little oils. She does have those. She will not eat processed anything. She's a vegetarian. She is blonde hair and with curls. She's got big curls. She is very bubbly. Isabel is a head cheerleader. She is mean. She will use her powers for her own good. And what I mean by that is she wants to be head cheerleader and prom queen. So she goes into boys' dreams and makes out with them in their dreams. So she gets their vote.
Wow.
I went, what?
Manipulative.
Right. She's very manipulative. She's very like, it's all about me. So let me tell you, the Isabel that we get in our series is nothing like that Isabel. Now she calms down a little bit as the books go, but she's very like all about me and like she has to look perfect and she wants things her way. And who'd I miss?
How is Liz different?
Oh, Liz. Liz is almost the same too. Liz is a science freak. She wants to get the heck out of Roswell. Her whole family lives there because she's Latino and like she's got a million uncles and aunts and they watch everything she does. Oh, and she also, just like Roswell, New Mexico, had a sister Rosa who overdosed. So her dad is very watches her every move. She wants to make sure she doesn't die, she doesn't do anything. But Liz is very smart. She's very kind. She does a lot remind me of Sherry and of the Liz that we know. So they did good with her, except she's not Latino, of course. But Alex is, at first he's a nerd and everybody makes fun of him until something happens to him. He comes back and all of a sudden he's a stud. Everybody wants to date him. Alex is very funny, very quirky, and he is very smart too. He has a lot of one-liners, just like our Alex did.
Do they have any dupes in Roswell High? They don't have any dupes, right?
No, there's no dupes. No dupes. No Antar. They have a home planet, but they don't say what it is. They don't say the name of it. They all have powers that are the same. So basically, everything that Max can do, Isabel and Michael can do too. They all can heal. They all can dream walk. They all can change the molecular structure of things. Changing the molecules is what they call it, I think. There's no Naceto. He's not there. There's no, what the heck's the bald guy's name?
Langley?
Langley?
I think it is Langley. It's Langley.
Cal Langley. Yeah, I never say his name right. There's none of them. There's no skins.
There's no skins, but there's Nicholas, and he's not a skin, but he's completely different guy in the Roswell High books.
Right. Nicholas is the equivalent of Tess. Let me explain that. So when the pods, when the ship crashed, there were 4 pods in there. By the way, they're also not king and queen. There's no royalty. Our aliens are not royal, and they're not hybrids either. They're pure alien, but they don't have any kind of royalty at all. When the pods came on the ship and the ship crashed, there were 4. Well, they didn't come out until that's kind of the same because they crashed in 1947 and they didn't come out till years later when they were 8 years old. And of course, just like our story, Max and Isabel get adopted by the Evans. Michael gets put in foster care, and in the 10 books that I read, he changed foster cares twice. Instead of Tess, we have somebody named Nicholas. Nicholas gets adopted by somebody else all the way in California, and Nicholas comes looking for them. Nicholas can use his powers stronger than our aliens can because they're in hiding. They don't want anybody to know that they are aliens, kind of like our story was there as well. So Nicholas makes fun of them, and he hates humans. He calls them rabbits, and he doesn't care. He'll kill anybody. He don't care. He does what he wants. Well, Isabel is madly in love with Nicholas. She does everything in her power to try to make Nicholas fall in love with her, which he pretty much does. But Nicholas, he don't last that long. He gets killed by Valenti. Nicholas can go into people's brains and pinch a nerve and make them pass out. And he does that to Liz, and it almost kills her. It gives her a brain hemorrhage, and then Max has to save her again from Nicholas. And Max does not like him. Max hates Nicholas, but Isabel's in love with Nicholas. Isabel's like, I don't care. At the same time, she was dating Alex, and she's like, sorry, Alex, I want one of my own kind. Pretty much leaves him in the dust.
Wow.
They like to break into places at night. Nicholas is a bad boy. He likes to do bad things. And they break into the mall in the middle of the night, and Valenti shows up there, and Valenti shoots them. He shoots Nicholas dead in the face, and then he's going after Max and Liz, and he gets put into this white orb bubble where he's frozen, and Max is like, oh, I didn't do that, and it's because there's another alien who saves them. He's been watching them, and he is the equivalent of what Nasato was. Ray, his name is Ray. Ray is the owner of the UFO museum. He is Max's boss. Max does work there. He's only working there one day before he finds out that Ray is an alien. Ray's the one that saved them in the shopping mall from Valenti. So Ray said he's the one who found their pods when it crashed. He was on the ship with their parents. They were all scientists, and they were coming to this Earth to see if the world was inhabited, to see what was inhabited for their kind, I guess, because they wanted to live among us. And they decided that we wouldn't be able to handle aliens among them, so they were leaving. And they had a stowaway, and the stowaway was an evil alien named DePriest. I don't ever know if I say that right. DePriest. They thought DePriest was dead. He's not dead. He's been hiding out, and he is the owner of a local newspaper that writes all about alien encounters. Isn't that funny? He's hiding in plain sight, just like the museum owner guy. Okay, so then we've got Adam. Adam is, how do I explain Adam? Adam is another alien that was found by Valenti as a baby. Valenti raised him in an underground cell compound and told him he was his dad. He was never allowed to go out into the world. So Max was getting sick, and he needed these special crystals from the ship, and they figured out that the ship was being held at this compound that Valenti was a part of for Project Clean Slate. And that's where they found Adam, because Michael got caught, and they put him in prison with Adam. And Michael helped bust Adam out. And Adam, he said, go into town and go find Max, and Max will keep you safe. Adam has a mindset of a 12-year-old boy. He's been stuck with no human contact his whole life. So he has no idea about anything works, how anything tastes, how anything works at all. So Adam isn't related. He's just another alien that was found. What that means got me. Because there's aliens everywhere, apparently, on this universe. And then, at the very end of our story, Michael keeps seeing somebody watching him, and guess what? Oh, he has a brother. His name is Trevor, and he came to find Michael. Trevor was hidden away because in their world, aliens are only allowed to have one child, unless, like Max and Isabel were in the same pod together. That's a twin thing that hardly happened. That's okay. So Michael's parents had another kid and found out that they were having Michael. So they hid the first son with a bunch of people. I guess it's like as a society that's against that. So when his brother got the opportunity to come to Earth, he came looking for Michael. And let me tell you that Michael was ecstatic, because the only thing that Michael's ever wanted is to have a family. And now he has a brother. He was so excited. And while we're speaking about that, our characters do have siblings in this one. So Maria has a little brother, and we know about Rosa. And then now Michael has a brother. So the premise of this story, I know it's really confusing and I'm jumping around, and that's because that's how this book is. It's a very different, very interesting story. The premise of this story is we got aliens hiding on Earth that are teenagers that think that they're the only ones, but they're not. There's aliens everywhere. And Valenti is trying to figure out who they are so that he can get rid of them. Project Clean Slate. Well, Kyle doesn't know what that's even going on. But Alex's dad, Jesse, he is part of Project Clean Slate also. Because what happens is, back in the mall, when Nicholas got shot, there's a ring that fell out of his pocket. And that ring is from the planet, and it was stolen. And these are like the rings of destiny. And these rings of destiny have huge power. And it opened a wormhole. And the wormhole sucks Alex in. Alex gets trapped on the planet. And the people, all they tell us is that he's stuck on a planet, he can't get out. They don't tell us what the planet looks like, what the other people are like. Some of the people don't like him. Some of the people want to kill him. It's a lot. I'm not even done. I haven't even talked about the powers yet. So, powers. Let's talk about powers. So we know that they can all use their powers together. And they can feel each other. So if Max uses his power, Isabel knows. And so does Michael. They can feel it. They can feel it being used. These aliens can see auras. Like, if you're at like a mood ring, I guess you could say, right? Everybody has their own color. Max is emerald green, Michael's is red, Liz is like auburn, Isabel's is purple. They all have their own color, and our aliens can see that on everybody. So when somebody's in a bad mood, Max knows because he can read that, and the colors change before his eyes. So when Liz finds out about Max, she's terrified. He goes to her room and he tries to explain what's going on and who he is, and she doesn't believe him. She thinks he's lying. And he melts a bracelet off her hand and reforms it, and scares the crap out of her. She's like, "Get out of here. You're a freak. I don't want anything to do with you." And it really hurts his feelings because he's been in love with her. You know, they've been in love for a long time. And she feels bad about it. She's like, "I shouldn't have never treated him like that, whatever." So then she tells Maria, and Maria thinks she's going crazy. And she's like, "No, you don't understand. This is what happened to me." She's like, "Well, I saw you die. I was there. I saw the blood. I saw you dying." And then Maria is the one that tells Alex. And so Max takes everybody out into the desert, and they all hold hands, and all their auras they combine together, and each person has their own smell and their own sound, and they become this collective unit. Now, could you imagine trying to film that? I kind of understand why they changed it, because first of all, that's a lot of kumbaya going on there. That's a lot. And second of all,
kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya.
Exactly. And that's a lot of kumbaya. That's a lot of smells, and that's a lot of it's like, let our powers combine. It's almost like Captain Planet shit. Remember that? And they're stronger together. They can fight the evil together, except for somebody getting stuck into a wormhole, apparently. But I mean, it's just, I can't even. It's so much. Like when they use the ring again when they're fighting the evil alien. Alex comes back and he just shows up like, "I'm back," and it's craziness. It's craziness. But probably the craziest thing is the dream walking. Let me just explain how dream walk works.
I was going to ask you about that. How does the dream walking work?
Let's imagine for a moment a soap bubble that does not pop. Okay? One of those thick bubbles that you blow out and it just stays there forever. That is what a dream walk looks like. So basically what they do is they go to what's called the dream plane. They find the soap bubble that they want and they hum a tune. So they literally are like, I want to grab Maria's bubble. And they go, or whatever the heck her note is. She has a note. And the bubble comes to her, and they can open the bubble up and step inside. And in that bubble, you can change anything. For instance, one time, Liz dreamed that she was drowning, and Adam went into her bubble. Adam, by the way, is in love with Liz, just so you know. And he goes into the bubble and changes her into a fish. So they're swimming around like fish in the little dream bubble. So you can change anything you want into the dream. So that's interesting. Very, very different than what we see. Another thing that it drove me crazy is the stuff that they eat. First of all, they're never in the cafe. They're never at the crash down. They mention the crash down twice. Twice. We know Maria and Liz both work there. That's the same. But they're never there. If they want to go hang out somewhere, they go to a place called the Flying Pepperoni, which is a pizza place. And by the way, Roswell is a town that has a mall and it has a Target, because Adam is obsessed with Target. And while everybody's at school, he goes to Target and goes to the toy section and plays with the toys.
What?
I'm not. I was like, what? So Roswell has more than what we got.
Wow.
I know. So they only mention hot sauce twice. And that's because Michael likes to go to a local donut shop and order crawlers. You know what crawlers are? I think they're those twisty ones.
Crawlers? You mean crawlers?
Crawler donuts. That's what they're called, crawlers. And he eats it with hot sauce.
Crawlers.
That. He likes to order donuts and put hot sauce on them, and he eats those by the dozen. He loves them. Michael likes to eat that, and then they talked about eating candy bar with mustard on it, and Max likes to dip his spicy chips into peanut butter.
So they do like a mixture of sweet and spicy together.
They do. They always put sugar packets on stuff, which is probably why they did that in ours with Tess. Remember, she was the only one who did the sugar packet thing. They do that. Everybody does that in Roswell High.
I will always remember the little sugar cube scene between Tess and Isabel and how much it freaked me out.
Right? And then they like to, like, he'll eat stuff and he likes to backwash it with, like, mouthwash and toothpaste. They like to eat that stuff. I'm like, ew. So I'm kind of glad that we got just the hot sauce, because that stuff's nasty. And don't even get me started on the nail polish, because that's
Is there any mind warping?
no mind warping. No.
Because there's no Tess. There's no Tess in Roswell High.
Right. There's no test.
So do they use shields? Like, does Max put up his green shield in Roswell High?
No shields.
Okay, do they have anything like Michael had where they knock people, they can kill people with their hand, with the force sheer energy from their hands or anything like that?
No, however, when aliens go into puberty, they have to connect with the conscience, with the collective conscience, which is all the aliens from their home planet and even the ones that died. And when you connect, you can go, for instance, I'll give you an instance. He was eating a candy bar and the conscience was saying, I want to know what that tastes like. Can you eat more of it? And one time he was kissing Liz and the conscience were like, what is that? That's a kiss? And he goes like, his eyes go completely black, Frank, and he has like no, because they're absorbing everything he does. And Liz hates it. She thinks that it's like, you were doing that in the middle of us kissing? And at first she can control it. But then it gets weird and he can't. And he starts licking random stuff. Like he's in Isabel's room talking to her, and he picks up a statue and starts licking it. And Isabel's like, what are you doing? And she said, the conscience wants to know what this tastes like. She's like, it's a cat. It's like, it's a statue. Why are you licking that? So this conscience is made up of all these beings from the planet, right?
The beings from their home planet.
Yeah, like all the people from their home planet connect together through the collective conscious. It's everybody who's ever lived and died. I can't explain it other than that.
So it's like voices in his head telling him to do stuff.
Yes. So they're like, you need to lick that. We want to taste it. What's that?
Well, what if he doesn't, like, lick that? Like, what happens if he doesn't do what they say?
Well, they end up turning him off, and he goes into a coma.
Oh.
He does it so much and with such, to the point where they like take Max and all his essence and they steal it into the collective conscious to where he's trapped. And you know how he gets out of it? By Liz. He hears Liz and he fights his way and he's like, you saved me. Their love is pretty much the same, except for when he was kissing her like that and she couldn't stand it, and she broke up with him, and then Adam was like, well, I'm here, and Adam kissed her and she let him, and then she's like, no, I'm still in love with Max.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. It's very, very different. Very. There's no Jetta. The car's not. The Jeep is still there. When the guy that owns the museum, Ray, gets killed by Valenti, too, he leaves all his possessions, including the museum, to Michael. So Michael, he ended up getting out of the foster care system and inheriting the UFO museum. So he owns the museum and the apartment that comes with it and the car.
we know Max and Liz are together in Roswell High. Michael and Maria are not exactly together. There's no Isabel. There's no Isabel and Alex. I mean,
It takes them 10 books. Isabel and Alex are hot and heavy until Nicholas shows up. And then Nicholas gets killed. And then she goes back to Alex for a little bit, but then she decides she doesn't want to go there because he comes back from a wormhole and he's like Mr. Popular and she doesn't want him anymore. And she ends up wanting Michael's brother, Trevor. But he ends up going back in the wormhole and leaving her. And she's like, come with me, Isabel. But he doesn't want to. She stays on Earth with the rest of them because that's her family, she says. Oh, she thinks she's in love with Michael at one point, too. And they make out. But then she realized that there's nothing there. She's not in love with Michael. Michael thought so, too. When Michael was in the prison, there's a girl named Cameron who was in the prison with him. He got close to her, and they were making out, and she was, like, licking his tattoo and stuff.
Do these characters have, like, a licking fetish in Roswell High? I don't understand what's going on.
I guess. I don't know. For being a teenage book, it was a lot more sexual than I thought it'd be. Like, I'm reading it, and all of a sudden I read Michael licks the lines of her butterfly tattoo, and I went, what? Michael ends up with Maria in the end after he convinced himself that he really is in love with her. So it gets there, it just takes a while.
Are Jim and Amy a thing?
There's no Amy. Her name, we don't ever get her name. Her name is Maria's mom. And Maria's mom is divorced and goes out on dates every single night. She tries to give Maria a sex talk too. It's pretty funny. She's like, Mom, you go out more than I do.
Jess, tell me about some of the locations in Roswell High.
They go to the caves, which we're going to talk about next time in Loose Ends. Their pods were found in a cave. They go to other caves to fight evil aliens. They go to Target and the Flying Pepperoni and this place called UFO Onces, which is a dance club. And they talk about a dance called some kind of abduction dance. It's like the chicken dance, only with aliens. I'm not kidding. I would say that always remember when you read the Roswell High books, they are completely different than the TV show. If you go into it thinking it's going to be like the TV show, you're going to be confused.
What book series did you like better, the Roswell High books or the companion book series?
1,000% the companion series. 1,000%. Like, I don't hate the Roswell High. I was really expecting to go into this hating it. I've had these books as long as I've had the other ones, and I haven't touched them. And I've been afraid. I was afraid what I'd find in there. So I did this not only for the podcast, but as an experiment to see like where this inspiration came from. And while I am grateful for the books because it gave birth to our show and the companion books, it is still not the same. There is just something about the chemistry between our cast, the writing, and the story that just hits me in the heart. Like it's just something so interesting, so divine, so different. And when I read this story, I felt like it was unfinished. I have no idea anything about that planet at all. We didn't get a lot about our planet, but we got nothing from this one. I don't even understand like Project Clean Slate. I don't, Valenti was in it, but Alex's dad was in it and he's not evil. He tried to help them kill the other. I don't understand. Like there's a lot going on and it's not very simplified. I think that they changed Roswell for us so that our aliens felt human, and they do. I mean, and I think that's part of the joy about our Roswell is that they are like us and they are passionate. So yeah, I would say definitely the TV show, my favorite.
For me, for those of you wondering out there, wondering what my favorite is, of course, I've heard from Jess all about the Roswell High series, and eventually one day I will probably at least skim it or read it for myself. But I don't. From what I've heard from Jess, I'm not too terribly interested.
Sorry.
In reading it, to be honest. But that's okay. Honestly, I think I will read it one day. But I do love the companion TV series books a lot because they're a lot like our show. And I'm so attached to our show that I really do enjoy reading the companion series, which I'm almost finished with. I'm in the last 2 books right now.
Well, Christy, as somebody coming in, like, I've read all the companions and you haven't. As somebody coming in afterwards, I mean, can you see, like, when I shut my eyes, well, that's a bad way to say it. As I read, I can picture our characters. I can see them. Yes. I can, it feels exactly like the show. Does it feel like that when you read? Can you picture that? Just the way that they act in the book as well on screen. Can you feel that?
Yeah, 100%. When I read the companion series books, I can picture the scene playing out in my head with our beloved characters from the TV show. I can completely see that because they wrote them so well, just like they were on the TV show. And I can picture it all in my head as I'm reading, and that's what I really enjoy.
Right, and a lot of times when you don't get that, a lot of times when somebody writes a book about a TV show or a movie, either the movie's really good and the books suck, or the books are really good and the movie sucks. It's never, like, cohesive. And I feel like the Roswell books are cohesive with our show. They're so great. They're so perfect. And that's why they're important to me. So when people like, oh, that's fanfic, oh, that's trash, we don't care because we didn't get to see it on screen, I feel like they're missing out. There's so much to learn, and there's so much joy in it, and it's just like our show.
That about wraps it up for all of the major differences between Roswell High and the Roswell Companion Book Series. In our next episodes, we are going to dive more into detail for the Roswell Companion Book Series, which tied into our beloved TV series Roswell. There are 11 books, so we're going to start with loose ends, and we look forward to just sharing more with you guys.
Also, please let me know what you think about Roswell High. Don't take what I think and say, oh, I'm not going to read it now. Please do, because you may like it more than I do. So yes, let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions, if there's something you're confused about and you want me to talk about it, hit me up and I would be glad to have a conversation about it with you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We are so glad you're here, and we'll see you next time. And remember, read the bleeping books. All opinions stated in this podcast are fan opinions only. We do not own the rights to the books. They were published through Simon & Schuster. Fox owns the rights to the books. We do not personally know anyone who helped produce the TV show Roswell or the authors who wrote the Roswell books. We suggest you subscribe to the Roswell Book Party channel on YouTube. They have all the books posted in audio form through the end of A New Beginning, and will post the rest of the series as soon as possible. Thank you for listening to 2 Aliens and 11 Roswell Books podcast.